It was still dark when the sweeper started his work. The city was quiet, cold, and uncaring. Streetlights flickered above empty roads, throwing thin pools of yellow light across piles of broken furniture, smashed crates, and mountains of discarded trash. The sweeper moved slowly, his broom dragging along the ground, stirring up clouds of dust that smelled faintly of rot and old smoke. He had done this work for years, and he knew every corner of the dump yard, every pile of trash, every broken thing that had been thrown away by people who did not care to remember it existed. He was used to the smell. He was used to the silence. He was used to the feeling that no one noticed him, that no one cared about him, and that the world outside this dump would never remember his name. Every night, he moved like a ghost, invisible among the garbage, quietly gathering what could be recycled, what could be sold, what could be turned into a little bit of money to eat, to survive, to keep moving in a city that had long forgotten him. Then, he heard it, a soft, strange sound. At first, he thought it was his imagination. Perhaps a rat scurrying across the metal scraps, or the wind sneaking through broken pipes. But then it came again, a small, weak cry, almost like the sound of a baby, but sharper, stranger, unfamiliar. The sweeper froze, his broom hovering in midair. He listened carefully. The sound came from deep inside a pile of broken metal and burned plastic. Some of the items in the pile looked dangerous: rusted nails, jagged pieces of metal, broken glass. People often threw away things that could hurt. People often threw away things without thinking. Even the smell from the trash was sharp tonight, a mix of rotting food and chemicals that burned his nose. But the cry, it sounded alive. Alive in a way that made his heart skip a beat. Carefully, he moved closer. His boots crunched softly over broken glass. He hesitated for a moment, breathing in slowly, then reached forward and pushed the trash aside. Small pieces of metal clinked, old cans rolled across the ground, and a cloud of dust rose around him, and then he saw it, a small creature, no bigger than a cat, curled up inside a hollow space between two metal sheets. Its body shook with fear, and its golden eyes, wide and shimmering in the faint light, barely opened. Its wings were tiny and torn, folded awkwardly against its sides. Its scales, even in the dim light, shimmered faintly, as though they held a secret glow within. It was not human. It was not any animal he had ever seen. It was a dragon hatchling. The sweeper stepped back, his heart racing, his hands trembling. Dragons were not supposed to exist here. They were powerful, feared, legendary. People told stories about dragons in old books and myths, in whispers, but he had never believed any of it. And yet, here it was, lying helpless in the garbage, golden eyes staring at him, fragile and alive. He knelt slowly, unsure if he should move closer. The hatchling's tiny claws scratched the air weakly. It tried to lift its head, but failed, trembling against the rough metal beneath it. It let out another weak cry, a sound so small and fragile that it made something inside him ache. The sweeper looked around. The dump yard was empty. No one was coming. No one would see this. No one would care. He had a choice. He could walk away, as everyone else had done. Pretend he had not heard the cries. Pretend he had not seen the small, trembling creature. Pretend that the world had no need for dragons or for him. Or he could reach out. His hand shook as he stretched forward, his fingers brushing against the warm, fragile body of the hatchling. It shivered at the touch, tiny wings twitching. Its golden eyes widened in fear. But then, something unexpected happened. The hatchling leaned slightly into his hands, as if trusting him, as if hoping he would not let go. In that moment, the sweeper felt something he had not felt in a long time, something dangerous, something thrilling, something alive, a spark of connection, a spark of responsibility, a spark of fear, mixed with hope. He lifted the hatchling gently, cradling it close to his chest. Its small body was surprisingly warm, its tiny claws clutching at his shirt instinctively. The sound of its soft cries faded, replaced by the rapid beating of his own heart. He wondered, how did it end up here? Who had thrown it away, and why? Questions swirled in his mind, but he did not have answers. All he knew was that he could not leave it there. Not tonight. Not ever. The night around him felt suddenly alive. The cold wind that had seemed empty now whispered through the metal sheets as if urging him forward. Somewhere in the distance, a stray dog barked, and a broken streetlight flickered. The world had not noticed him until now, but somehow, in this quiet moment, it felt like everything had shifted. He tucked the hatchling closer, careful not to hurt it, careful not to let it fall. Its golden eyes stared up at him, unblinking, and he saw not anger or fear, but hope. Tiny, fragile hope that someone, somewhere, might care. The sweeper took a deep breath and stood slowly. He had no idea what he was doing. He had no idea what the future held. He only knew that, somehow, he had to protect this small creature. As he stepped away from the pile of trash, the hatchling pressed closer to him, as if sensing the danger that might be waiting outside. Something in his chest tightened. Something in him changed. From that moment, he was no longer just a sweeper. He was something more. A guardian, a protector, a human who had been invisible, now chosen for a purpose greater than himself. And the dragon hatchling had found someone who cared. The sweeper moved quickly through the narrow, broken streets, clutching the small dragon to his chest. He didn't know where he was going, he only knew he had to get it out of the open. His tiny room at the back of an old, crumbling building would have to do. It was small, barely big enough for a bed and a few boxes, and it smelled faintly of damp wood and old dust. But it was safe. For now, he closed the door carefully behind him and set the dragon down on an old blanket. The hatchling shivered, curling into a tiny ball. Its golden eyes watched him, wary but trusting. The sweeper knelt beside it, carefully examining the tiny, fragile body. Its wings were still torn, the tips ragged and bruised. Its tail had a faint scratch across one side, and one claw seemed to have been broken. Healed poorly. He had no medicine, no bandages, just a little water, some rags, and scraps of food he had kept for himself. He worked slowly, cleaning its wounds as best he could. The dragon hissed softly at first, a sound sharp and strange, then settled down, letting him wash away the dirt and grime. It was a delicate, terrifying process, and the sweeper's hands shook the entire time. He had never touched anything like this before, not alive, not fragile, not magical. Finally, he offered it a piece of bread soaked in water. The dragon sniffed at it, unsure, then nibbled. Its little body trembled as it ate. The sweeper ate nothing that day, feeling a strange kind of pride mixed with fear. He had given away his own small meal to save something else. Days passed. At first, the dragon barely moved. It slept most of the time, curled up on the blanket, barely opening its golden eyes. But slowly, imperceptibly, it grew stronger. Its wings twitched, then stretched a little. Its claws scratched playfully at the blanket. Its tiny head lifted more confidently, and soon it began following him wherever he went in the small room. When he returned from work each evening, exhausted and filthy, the dragon would make soft, happy sounds. The sweeper could not understand them, of course, but they felt like laughter. Something inside him stirred, something long dormant. For the first time in years, he felt needed. Someone depended on him. Someone cared. But even as he marveled at the creature, he could not ignore the signs that something was strange. At night, the dragon's scales shimmered faintly, glowing with a soft golden light that filled the small room. Its eyes shone brighter, almost too bright for something so small. And sometimes, when it was startled, small flames danced across its tiny mouth. Harmless but terrifying. The sweeper had seen fire only in stories, in myths, never in something so small, so alive, and so helpless. He could not deny it. The dragon was not normal. And with that realization came fear. If anyone found out what he had, they would take it, not for protection, not for love, for greed, for power, for cruel experiments. The sweeper had heard stories, whispers on the streets, rumors of men who captured animals, creatures, and anything rare. They would kill, hurt, or enslave anything magical. And this dragon, his dragon, was valuable beyond measure. He paced the room at night, listening to the sounds of the city outside, his mind racing. He could not let it out. He could not let anyone see it. Not neighbors, not children playing in the alleys, not even the people he worked with at the dump yard. He had no choice but to protect it. Then one afternoon, everything changed. He was returning from the dump yard, carrying a few scraps of food he had scavenged, when he noticed them, strange people moving slowly between the piles of trash. Their clothes were dark, clean, in sharp stark contrast to the dirty, messy workers who normally sifted through the dump. They carried long, strange devices, shining slightly in the sunlight, scanning the piles as if expecting something to appear. They moved deliberately, carefully, almost silently, yet the sweeper noticed them immediately. Something in their presence screamed danger. Something told him that whatever they were looking for was not ordinary. The sweeper's heart raced. He ducked behind a pile of discarded furniture. Peeking carefully, the strangers crouched and searched, their eyes scanning every pile of metal and trash, moving as if they knew what they were hunting. They didn't speak to anyone. They didn't ask for directions. They did not care about the workers or the city. They were looking for something alive. And then it hit him like a sudden, icy wave. They were looking for the dragon. He felt his stomach twist. His chest tightened. The little creature he had spent days caring for, feeding, and protecting his dragon was in danger. Right now, they were close. He thought of his tiny room, the blanket where the dragon slept, the little scraps of food he had gathered. If the strangers came here, the dragon would be gone. Gone forever. Fear surged through him, mixed with determination. He could not let that happen. He could not walk away. He had saved it once. He would save it again. The sweeper's hands clenched into fists. He looked down at the little dragon, sleeping peacefully on the blanket. Its tiny chest rose and fell with each breath. Its golden eyes closed, its wings tucked carefully around its body. It trusted him, and he would not betray that trust. He knew, without a doubt, that he would have to do something dangerous, something no sweeper had ever done before. He would have to hide the dragon, protect it, keep it alive, keep it safe, and maybe, just maybe, he would have to fight for it, because these strangers were not ordinary people. They were hunters. They were dangerous, and they would stop at nothing to take the dragon. The sweeper stared out of the small window of his room that night, the city stretching below him like a gray, uncaring ocean. His heart pounded. The dragon stirred in its blanket, sensing his fear, pressing closer to him. Its tiny warmth against his chest was a reminder of what he had to protect. He took a deep breath. Tomorrow, he would go back to the dump yard. He would watch. He would wait. And he would do whatever it took to keep the dragon safe. Because he realized now what he had never understood before. Some secrets are dangerous. Some creatures are magical. And sometimes, the smallest human, in the quietest, darkest place, could make the biggest difference. Tonight, the sweeper had a secret, a dangerous secret, a secret that could change everything. And he knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. The sweeper sat on the edge of his small bed, the dragon curled against his chest. Its tiny body had grown slightly stronger in the days since he had found it, but it was still fragile, still innocent, and still, he could feel something unusual radiating from it, a strange heat, a faint glow, a power that seemed far bigger than the little creature in his arms. Then it hit him the truth. Someone had thrown the dragon away, not because it was weak or useless. No, they had thrown it away because it was too valuable. And now, they wanted it back. It started slowly at first. Strangers in dark clothes lingered near the dump yard. They asked questions, casually at first, but their eyes were sharp. Too sharp for people who were just curious. Whispers began to spread through the alleys, in the corners of the market, in the streets where the sweeper worked. Rumors of rewards, of experiments, of powerful buyers who would pay anything for rare creatures. People spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously, as though afraid of being overheard. The sweeper listened. He didn't ask questions. He didn't want attention. But he heard enough. The dragon was not just a creature. It was something precious. Something dangerous in the wrong hands. Something worth hunting. The realization made his stomach twist. He had kept it hidden, had fed it, cared for it, protected it. But now the danger was closer. That night, the air outside seemed heavier than usual. The wind carried strange noises, the kind that make a man's skin crawl. And then he heard a soft, almost imperceptible movement outside his door. He froze. Hard hammering. The dragon stirred in his arms, sensing his fear. Its tiny head lifted, golden eyes wide. Its wings twitched, claws gripping his shirt. And then, as though in response to the danger, a tiny flame erupted from its mouth. Not a large fire, not dangerous, but bright enough to illuminate the room in a flickering, golden light. The sweeper flinched, startled, and the dragon hissed a warning, sharp and loud. Far louder than its small body should allow. They were close. He didn't need to see them to know it. The air itself seemed different, heavy with intent. The hunters were coming, and if they found the dragon, they would take it. The sweeper knew then that they could not stay. Not for a second longer. He could not wait. He could not risk being caught. Every moment in that room was a moment too long. He packed what little he had, some food scraps, a blanket, a small water container, and tucked the dragon carefully inside his arms. It squeaked nervously, curling closer to him. He whispered softly, though he wasn't sure the dragon understood. "Don't be afraid. I won't let them take you. Not now. Not ever." The dragon's golden eyes met his, wide and trusting, and for a brief moment, the sweeper felt a strange warmth inside him. He had never felt so responsible for anything in his life. And yet, he had no choice. They had to run. The streets were dark and empty. He moved silently, careful not to make any sound that would alert the strangers. His heart pounded with every footstep. The dragon pressed closer, tiny claws gripping his clothes. Its small wings fluttered slightly, brushing against his chest, for the first time in his life. The sweeper was not running for himself. He was running for someone else. Every corner seemed dangerous. Every alleyway seemed like a trap. But he had learned the city's secrets in his years as a sweeper, hidden paths, forgotten doors, empty corridors. He used them all, ducking under broken fences, climbing over low walls, slipping through shadows where no one noticed him. Still, he could feel them behind him. The strangers were fast, precise, and patient. He heard faint sounds, soft footsteps, a rustle of clothes, the metallic click of something in their hands. They were not careless. They knew what they were looking for. They were hunting. The sweeper ducked into an abandoned warehouse, hoping the shadows would hide him. The dragon trembled in his arms, and he held it closer, whispering, "It's okay. We'll be safe. Just a little longer." He peeked outside. Through a crack in the wall, he could see them moving slowly, scanning the street, shining small lights into dark corners. They were thorough. They would not leave until they found their prize. He realized something terrifying. They knew it was valuable. They knew it had escaped. And now they were not just looking, they were hunting. He had to act fast. He could not let them catch up. Not here. Not ever. He moved again, carefully, silently, clutching the dragon tightly. They slipped past the warehouse, through narrow back alleys, over piles of rubble, through the abandoned market where broken carts leaned against cracked walls. Every step was careful, deliberate. Every sound could betray them. The dragon nestled against him, its body warm and alive. Its golden eyes blinked slowly, trusting him completely, even though it must have sensed the danger closing in. And then it happened. A sudden shout echoed from behind them. One of the strangers had spotted movement as shadow. The sweeper didn't stop. He ran faster, leaping over broken planks, slipping through tight spaces. The dragon's claws dug into his shirt, wings fluttering in panic. But it did not make a sound. They ran together, human and dragon, through the empty streets, over broken alleys, past silent buildings that had long forgotten life. The night stretched on, tense and dangerous. Every step was a gamble. Every breath carried fear. And yet, through the terror, through the adrenaline, through the danger, the sweeper felt something he had never felt before. He felt alive, not for himself, but for another. He was no longer invisible, no longer alone. He had a purpose. He had to protect the dragon, and nothing, no hunter, no danger, no darkness would stop him. The sweeper and the dragon had been on the run for days. They moved quietly through abandoned streets and broken alleyways, avoiding the city's main roads, slipping through shadows where no one would notice them. The sweeper's body ached from exhaustion, but he did not stop. The dragon was small, fragile, and yet something about it gave him courage. They found a place to hide far from the city, an old, forgotten warehouse near the edge of the river. The building had no roof, and the walls were cracked and covered in ivy, but it was safe. At least for now. The sweeper laid the dragon down on a pile of old blankets, its golden eyes blinking slowly, still wary but calmer than before. For the first time since he had found it, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. The night was quiet, filled with the soft sound of the river and the rustling of leaves in the wind. He thought they might finally have a moment of peace. But the dragon had other plans. That night, something incredible happened. It had been quiet for hours, curled up and resting. Then, slowly, it began to stir. Its wings twitched, small at first, then stretching further than the sweeper had ever seen. They glimmered in the faint moonlight, scales shimmering with golden patterns that seemed to shift and glow from within. The sweeper gasped. He had never seen anything so beautiful, so powerful, so alive. And then the impossible happened. The dragon lifted off the blankets. For a brief moment, it hovered in the air, flapping its small wings with effort. It was clumsy at first, wobbling slightly, but its wings caught the air, strong and confident. The sweeper watched in awe, unable to speak. It was flying, and not just flying. It was showing him something. The moment it lifted, a strange sensation swept over the sweeper. His mind blurred, and suddenly, flashes of images appeared before his eyes. A memory, not his own, but somehow shared with him. He saw a destroyed place, a city, but not this one. A place torn apart, buildings shattered, smoke filling the sky. He saw other dragons, captured, chained, struggling, their scales dull and their eyes full of fear. He saw humans taking them, hurting them, forcing them to obey. And then he saw the small dragon, lying among the wreckage, looking weak. Alone, abandoned. The sweeper's heart pounded. He stumbled backward, almost dropping the hatchling. The dragon hovered, golden eyes steady, wings strong, calm, almost patient. As if it knew he needed to understand, the truth became clear. The dragon had not been abandoned because it was weak. It had been abandoned because it had escaped. The people chasing them were not owners, they were hunters. Hunters who captured dragons. Hunters who used them, exploited them, and discarded the ones they no longer needed. They took the strongest for power, for wealth, for experiments. The weakest, the injured, the small ones, they threw away. But this hatchling was not weak. It had been waiting for someone brave enough to protect it, someone kind enough to care, someone human. The sweeper stared at the dragon, understanding finally what he had stumbled into. This was no ordinary creature. It was powerful, intelligent, and alive in a way that defied explanation. And it trusted him. He could not just hide anymore. He could not just run. The hunters would come again, and next time, they would not leave without taking the dragon. He had seen their faces in the city, the way they moved, their cold, calculating eyes. They would stop at nothing, and if they succeeded, it would be the end for the hatchling, and perhaps for others like it. The sweeper's hands tightened around the small dragon, and he made a decision. He would fight back. Not with weapons, he had none. Not with strength, he was no warrior. But with courage, with cleverness, with the bond he had formed with this dragon. He looked into its golden eyes, and somehow, he felt the dragon understood. It nudged his shoulder with its tiny snout, wings flicking once, twice. It was ready. The sweeper whispered softly, almost to himself, "We will not let them take you. I don't care what it costs. We fight together." The dragon hissed softly, a sound that was more than a hiss, more like a promise. A bond. The sweeper felt it resonate in his chest. They were partners now, human and dragon, bound by trust and survival. He spent the rest of the night planning. He could not take the fight head on. The hunters had numbers, technology, and experience. But he had knowledge of the city, of hidden paths, secret places, and silent routes. He had the element of surprise, and most importantly, He had the dragon by morning. He had a plan. He would lure them away from the city, away from people. He would use the river, the forests, the ruins, any place where the hunters could not easily corner them. And when the time came, he would act. The dragon moved beside him as he prepared. Its wings stretched, small flames flickering at the edges of its mouth. The sweeper flinched slightly, but then smiled. This was no longer a helpless creature. It had grown stronger, braver, and alive in ways he could barely understand. Together, they would be ready, because the sweeper realized something that night. Sometimes, the smallest human, the one who seemed weakest, invisible, forgotten, could make the biggest difference. And this dragon, this hatchling, had chosen him for a reason. He had saved it once. Now it was time to save it again. He would not hide. He would not run. They would fight, and together, they would survive. The sweeper knew the hunters would find them eventually. He had felt it in his bones, the quiet tension in the air, the way the city seemed to shift around them as if warning him. And tonight, they had come. He crouched behind a pile of broken crates in the ruins of an old warehouse. The dragon pressed tightly to his chest. Its golden eyes glowed faintly, wings twitching nervously, sensing the danger that drew closer. The hunters were silent, efficient, their movements calculated, like predators that had stalked their prey for far too long. The sweeper felt his stomach twist with fear, but there was no time to run. The dragon was ready. Its body shimmered faintly, scales glowing more brightly than ever, and he felt the heat radiating from its small body. For the first time, he understood fully this was not just a hatchling. This was a force to be reckoned with. He stood slowly, feeling the weight of the dragon in his arms. He could hear the hunters moving in the shadows, soft footsteps echoing against broken walls. They were close, far too close. He could run. He could hide. He could leave the dragon and survive. But he did not. He would not. He placed the dragon gently on the ground and stepped in front of it. His fists clenched, his body shaking from fear, adrenaline, and determination. He was nothing to them. A poor sweeper, unarmed, weak, invisible. The hunters laughed. "Look at this," one of them sneered. "A man thinks he can stop us. Pathetic." They circled slowly, weapons glinting in the moonlight. They were confident, cruel, and certain that they would take the dragon. The sweeper's heart pounded. He could see it in their eyes. They believed he was nothing. Worthless, weak. He let them think that. Then, the dragon stepped forward. Its body glowed brighter than ever, light spilling across the broken floor. Its wings stretched wide, catching the moonlight, creating shadows that danced across the walls. Its small frame seemed impossibly large, powerful, alive, and then it roared. The sound was deafening, earth-shaking, a deep, resonant roar that vibrated through the warehouse, through the streets outside, through the bones of anyone who heard it. The hunters froze. Their confident laughter died in their throats. Their weapons trembled in their hands. Flames burst from the dragon's mouth, bright and hot, licking the walls and ceiling. The heat pushed the hunters back, forced them to shield their faces. Smoke filled the air, thick and choking. The dragon was no longer small, weak, or helpless. It was awakening. The sweeper did not run. He stood beside it, trembling but resolute. He had nothing but courage and determination, but that was enough. Together, he and the dragon faced the hunters, and together, they were unstoppable. The hunters lunged forward, but the dragon was faster. Wings spread wide, it swooped and twisted, flames erupting in every direction. The sweeper ducked and dodged, guiding the dragon with gentle touches, whispering words of encouragement he barely understood himself. "This is it," he murmured. "We fight." Together, the hunters faltered, unsure of how to face a creature they had thought weak. Their weapons were useless against fire that could burn metal, against strength that defied imagination. Panic replaced their confidence, and then the impossible happened. The dragon leaped into the air, and for a moment, it seemed to grow larger, taller, more magnificent than the sweeper could have ever imagined. Its wings beat against the air, shaking the ground below. Its roar echoed again, louder, stronger, shaking the walls and rattling the broken windows. The hunters stumbled, fell, and then finally fled. They did not stop running until they were gone, disappearing into the night, terrified, defeated. Powerless against what they had underestimated, the sweeper sank to his knees, breathing hard, staring at the dragon. It landed beside him, scales still glowing softly, eyes flicking up at him as if checking that he was safe. The connection between them was stronger than ever now, forged in danger, in fear, in trust. The city, the hunters, the world, none of it mattered anymore. They had survived. They had fought. And they had won. Days later, stories began to spread through the city. Whispers of something strange and powerful, of a man who had stood beside a dragon, a creature that had seemed impossible to exist. People began to talk about the sweeper, the poor man who had no wealth, no power, no influence, but who had dared to protect the unimaginable. Children whispered the story in alleys. Merchants talked about it quietly in the market. Even the city guards had heard rumors of a glowing dragon, and a man who had faced it with nothing but courage, the sweeper, who had once been invisible, unnoticed, forgotten, was no longer invisible. He had nothing, but he had given everything, and in return, he had earned respect, admiration, and something far greater place in a story that would not be forgotten. Sometimes, he realized, the weakest human could change the fate of something powerful. Sometimes, the quietest, smallest person, the one no one noticed, could make the difference between life and death, hope and despair. And sometimes, even a dragon, the strongest, most majestic creature in existence, needed a human to believe in it. The sweeper looked at the dragon, golden eyes flicking in the soft light of dawn. It nuzzled him gently, wings folding neatly at its sides, small flames dancing harmlessly around its mouth. He smiled. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged. The dragon had chosen him, and he had chosen it. Together, they had faced fear, danger, and impossible odds. Together, they had survived. Together, they had become legends. The city would never forget the story, even if most people did not understand it fully. A poor sweeper, a creature thought weak and discarded, standing side by side against hunters, against cruelty, against the world that had ignored them both. He had been nothing once, but now, he was everything. And the dragon was free.